I would love to be able to regulate the content of speech. The First Amendment prevents me from doing so.
Russia's strategy now is not like the Soviet strategy of before. So because it cannot, in a practical way, challenge us militarily, it can challenge us politically by promoting chaos.
The most violent scenes I have ever witnessed. Trump supporters harassed, beaten, and blood.
Solinskyite trained, organized left-wing thug.
Anarchy. Obstructionist politicians.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
A media motivated by extreme ideology.
That was a racist lie told to appeal to racists.
Government officials using propaganda and actually encouraging protests, which they know for a fact are turning into violence in our streets.
And it has been people, individuals who have banded together. They've marched, they've bled. Yes, some of them have died.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people. That's my call to action here.
For years now, I have watched as the left has devolved into intolerant, inflexible, illogical, hateful, misguided, ill-informed, un-American, hypocritical, menacing, callous, ignorant, narrow-minded, and at times, blatantly fascistic behavior and rhetoric. Liberalism has been co-opted and absorbed by the very characteristics it claims to fight against. For years now, I've watched as people on the left have become anesthetized to their own prejudices and bigotry, and the prejudices and bigotry of those around them who echo their values. I have watched as formerly sensible people who claim to reject racism have come to embrace the principles of universally hating and blaming all of society's problems on all people who have white skin. I have witnessed the irony of advocacy for gender equality morph into blatant hatred and intolerance of men and masculinity. I have seen the once earnest fight for equality for the LGBT community mutate into an illogical demonization of heteronormativity and the push to vilify and attack our conventional concepts of gender. These same self-proclaimed victims of intolerance now turning on the gay community that they attached themselves to advance their agenda, now calling gay people privileged and themselves victims of injustice. I have watched as the left has allowed themselves to become hypnotized by false narratives and conclusions perpetuated by social justice warriors who misrepresent and misconstrue facts, evidence, and events to confirm their own biases that everyone who does not comply with their prejudicial conclusions and follow their orders is a racist, a bigot, a Nazi, a white supremacist, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, and alt-right extremist. And I have watched as they have used these heartless and carelessly assigned labels to intimidate, threaten, bully, silence, attack, unemploy, blacklist, and destroy anybody who dares to fight back. They'll come for me, and then they'll come for you. And worst of all, the Democratic Party and the liberal media has embraced, affirmed, aided, and abetted this cult ideology. In an effort to gain voters and maintain power, the Democratic Party that I once loved has joined forces with the extremist left. The Democratic Party and the liberal media now believe their own ill-gotten conclusions and have ominously decided that they, and only they, know the remedy for society's ills. The left has decided that the solution to problems with race relations in America is more racism. The left believes that attacking, insulting, and dehumanizing one group of people elevates another. The left now believes that there are no boundaries when telling lies, omitting the truth, or misrepresenting facts when telling the news, because their end justifies their means. The left has now decided that its point of view is the only acceptable one, and that suppressing, censoring, and banning open dialogue and debate is virtuous and progressive. The Democratic Party has adopted a deleterious belief system, happily and without skepticism, separating people into groups based off of identity and then organizing them into camps of victims and oppressors. If you are a person of color, an LGBT person, a woman, or an American immigrant, the Democratic Party wants you to know that you are a victim and destined to stay that way. They will insist that you are a victim doomed to exist within a system that is rigged against you, that you are a victim of systemic oppression, that you are a victim of your circumstances, and that no amount of hard work or motivational action will ever allow you to overcome your victimhood or the privilege of those around you. This is perhaps the Democratic Party's greatest and most insidious lie.
The mainstream media tells us that these riots and acts of violence are completely unorganized, defined as spontaneous in nature.
You don't just make a spontaneous protest where 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people show up in mind. You don't create things like that. That comes through organization.
The campaign pays DNC. DNC pays Democracy Partners. Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group. The Fogle Group goes and executes the shit on it.
Are seriously at a tipping point. I don't know. I worry. I don't know how many people actually are aware of how close we are to losing our country as founded. There's always going to be an America, but what is it going to be? And I do it by trying to analyze who the left is, what they have become. I look at what happened during the Kavanaugh hearings. You just described Ricin and the stuff to Susan Collins. We looked at the literal mob behavior that was inspired, bought and paid for by the Democrat Party. The media encourages it. In a sane world where decent people are the majority, that would be rejected out of hand. It wouldn't even be considered relevant. And the people of this country would want to get rid of that as quickly as they could. But yet, it may be close to 50% of the country. I don't think it is, and I hope not. The objective of the Democrat Party, basically determine outcomes and get even with oppressors, the founding majority of the country. That's what we're dealing with. And we consider this stuff legit, which it isn't. That kind of behavior is not legitimate. We don't want a country based on that kind of, we don't want people winning elections based on mobs and violence. We don't want, think if that happens, if they win the election based on this kind of behavior.
We'll get more of it.
Exactly right. Decent people do not spend all day trying to figure out how to battle this. Decent people are living their lives. We've got perversion, indecency, corruption up against what used to be called normalcy. And they're going way beyond the bounds of anywhere near propriety. But they think most Americans want to be encouraged to do mob-like behavior, get in people's faces. I don't think we've lost the country to the extent that that wins elections. All of these oddball left-wing behaviors becoming more and more normalized, and politics and government's role being to address their grievances, and we've become a country of nothing but a bunch of victims, constantly angry, demanding that somebody do something about it, instead of all of us, as we used to do, using self-reliance and our own initiative and our guts and handling life ourselves.